My favorite portion of the Torah is in this week's Torah portion, in Ki verses 1 through 7, approximate of chapter 22 of Deuteronomy, if you wanted to look it up. There happens to be a discussion about how if you find the lost property, namely actually animals, if you find the lost animal property of your neighbor, you must return it. So return the ox, return the cattle, return the donkey, etc. And the rabbis much later on in the Talmud, the first centuries of the Common Era, take this commandment and actually apply it and expand it further to say that all lost property must be returned. And in fact, not only to your fellow, but earlier in Exodus chapter 23, there's actually discussion that you should also return the lost property of your enemy. In other words, even when it's difficult to return lost property, you have to go out of your way to return it, and not just animals, but anything. And so what is really interesting about these verses and why it's my favorite in the entire Torah is twofold. One, it actually has to do with medicine. We are told by Maimonides, who was a doctor amongst many of his professions, that in fact the permission granted to doctors to do their work is given by these verses. That health is something that can be lost, such as lost property. And so when you have lost health, a doctor actually has an obligation to seek to return it to its rightful owner, to the patient. Really fascinating in my mind, and really very beautiful, I think, to say that that's the doctor's work. But the second interpretation that has always moved me and made it one of my favorite portions of the Torah has to do with this time of year. We are so close to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We are in that Hebrew month of Elul. And even Slichot next Saturday night, 9 o'clock p.m. here at Holy Blossom Temple, is all signaling to us that this is a time of year where we are about repentance and reflection and renewal. And the rabbis teach us, particularly the Hasidic rabbis, that in fact we may have lost parts of ourselves, we may have lost some of our best principles and moral ethics, etc. And so in fact we must return ourselves to a whole fresh self. We must learn from our mistakes and set out a healthy path going forward. So I wish all of us a Shana Tova, a very happy new year, and I also wish to see that much lost property is returned, whatever that property in fact is, namely perhaps our hearts.